Purport. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magh, January or February. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya, illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. Text 14 again. Matras parshastu kanteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama paino nityas tam stitikshasva bharata. Translation. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, a sign of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivikasa Swaminiti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, as we've read in this verse of Bhagavad Gita, everybody, and its purport, everybody has some duties in this world, whether they are a scientist, an artist, a politician, a philosopher, a sociologist, economist, whatever they may be. Everybody has some duty for their family, for their nation, for their society, and they try to enact their duties as much as possible. But in the enactment of these duties, in the performance of these duties, various distressful conditions, various obstacles certainly do arise if one looks upon his life. Life is basically just problems. From the morning till evening, there are various questions we need to answer, various things we have, various tasks we have to perform. Life is actually just a set of problems. And being driven by our sense of duty, being driven by our responsibilities, we are faced with an ocean of happiness and distress in this material world. We cannot just give up. People depend upon us. People have different expectations. Our family has expectations. Our society has expectations. And driven by the this, what's the word? Identification, that we are part of society, we are part of a family. Driven by this idea that we need to perform this duty, everybody acts, and in the discharge of duties meets happiness and distress. And what Lord Krishna is teaching us in this 2 sentences is that this perception of happiness and distress, these problems and solutions that arise in our life, are actually due to sense perception. Matras parshas, sensory perception. And this world is, this happiness, distress that we find in this world, this is relativity, the form of relativity. There is black and white, heat and cold, happiness, distress, honor, dishonor, victory and failure, and various types of distress, richness or poverty, fatness or thinness, various kinds of relative states of existence. And these states of existence arise only due to our sense perception. Because we perceive the world through our sensory organs, we perceive cold, heat, because we perceive the world through our mind, which is the main sense organ, which collects all the data from all the other senses. We perceive even subtle dualities like honor, dishonor, which maybe don't exist in the physical world, but they are subtle forms of dualities, or richness and poverty and stuff like that. So our experience of this world is shaped by the way we perceive it. If we are blind, if we don't have a certain sensory organ, we're going to perceive the world differently. There's this in Shakespeare's King Lear, I don't know how it's pronounced. There's this blind king, and his one scene he's asked, "How do you perceive the world?" And he said, "Feelingly." Some other sensory organs he uses to perceive the world. We perceive the world more colorfully, and stuff like that. If we are less intelligent, like animals are, we're going to perceive the world as a mere battle for existence. If we are more advanced, we're going to, if we have higher intelligence, higher cognitive powers, we're going to perceive the world as having more opportunities than just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. People that are dumb perceive the world differently from the people that are intelligent, etc. Everybody has this experience. In our own life, our perception of the world changes drastically as we get older. Is that true? People, when we're children, we perceive the world differently from the way we perceive it when we are adults, because our perception changes, and therefore our experience is different. As children, it's all fun and games. The world is but a playground. But when we have our own children, then the world is much more serious. We have to earn a living, feed our family. It's no longer fun and games. And in the discharge of our duties, when we face all those difficulties that we face, people have to rise early, cook, feed their children, drive 2 hours to work, get stuck in the traffic jam. They spend 8 hours in an office, then drive 2 hours back, and then have to clean up something, and then maybe have some sense enjoyment, some TV or whatever, shopping, whatever, yeah. In the discharge of so many austerities in life, it is people unconsciously change their perception of the world. They do it unconsciously. You meet have a certain idea what is life, and then let's just say, for example, your spouse dies, then you have to change your idea of life. You have to adjust your perception of life. The way you perceived it earlier no longer functions because it's no longer the same. You have to adjust. And people do that all the time. Actually, we do it as we grow up all the time. When you go from kindergarten to elementary school to high school, you adjust your consciousness according to the situation you're in. But due to lack of intelligence, due to lack of reasoning, people adjust their consciousness so that they become better in manipulating the world around them. Now, this is very important. People, all they try to do, all of us that we've been trying to do so far, is accumulate knowledge, change our perception, so we can adjust the reality around us. We go to maybe school, high school, we learn in order to earn a living, we learn in order to earn. We try to manipulate the world around us. But when it comes to monkhood, when it comes to being a monk, being a monk is something categorically different. Being a monk, to become a monk, one also has to change his perception of realities. You're gonna have a life change. You're gonna move to a temple. Gonna listen to different people. No longer listen to your parents. You're gonna have to obey different rules, different from the ones you've been obeying so far. So you naturally develop a different perception. But a monk is a person who understands, as opposed to all the other people, he understands the futility of endeavoring to control the world around us. That's a monk. That's a true monk. Some people perceive monkhood as another way of controlling the world around us. I'm gonna move in a temple, I'm gonna get all the food, I don't have to pay, I just have to do some services, and I'm happy, my life's taken care of. Some people perceive it like that, but yesterday we heard that that's not true priesthood, that's not true monkhood, that's not the true attitude a monk needs to have in order to be a real monk. How the monk differs from all the other people is that he understands the futility to endeavor in manipulating this world. I don't know if my syntax is all right, but anyway. What does that mean? The intelligent person, it's said in Srimad Bhagavatam, the intelligent person is he who understands that both happiness and distress come of their own accord. Hello, welcome, please come in. Yes, you can come in. You can take those mats over there. Može neko dati? Sudama Prabhu, ili može dodati samo te jastuke i staviti? Hvala ti. We're having a lecture, please sit, listen, it's very inspiring, I hope. The intelligent person, it said in the Srimad Bhagavatam, is he who understands that both happiness and distress in this material world come of their own accord. Nobody wants sadness, right? Nobody wants to be sad. But some of the saddest moments of our life came unplanned. We weren't planning to be sad, but they just came. And similarly, everybody wants to be happy, but still, and everybody's trying to be happy, but still, the happiest moments of our life are mostly unplanned. They were unforeseen. It just happened somehow or other. Happiness and distress actually come on their own accord. And we see that different attempts to be happier or trying to amend this state of existence, trying to become more happy and less sad, don't often work. People get rich, they're still depressed, kill themselves even. And some people who are poor are some of the happiest people alive. Trying to avoid distress, trying to gain happiness doesn't work through material endeavor. By trying to arrange this material world, we don't change our levels of happiness and distress that we're going to experience in this world. Happiness and distress come on their own. And that's the understanding of a monk. So, what to do? We just kill ourselves? No. Maybe just kind of lose hope and give up trying to do anything and just go with the flow. Well, that's not intelligent either. What the intelligent person tries to do is, instead of changing and manipulating the world around us, the intelligent person tries to change himself. Tries to consciously change his perception of the world. We said that our experience of this world is shaped by our perception. That's what we learned today. And an intelligent person is he who stops trying to change the world, but instead tries to change himself, tries to adjust his mentality in a way that he will stop being influenced by this happiness and distress. He tries to train himself so that his experience of the world is no more dependent on the external reality. That's a monk. That's a monk. Someone who is endeavoring for self-realization, the attainment of his highest potential. And this requires austerity. This requires some endeavor to change ourselves. To change ourselves is actually not that easy. To be sincere to ourselves, to be honest with ourselves, is quite a difficult thing, because we are so engrossed in material consciousness. We're so engrossed in this mentality of trying to manipulate the world around us that it's kind of difficult to acknowledge that we're not, it's not going for us really. We've gone through kindergarten, elementary school, high school, college. We've accumulated so much knowledge, and we're supposed to be great at now. After education, we're supposed to be great at manipulating the world, but we're still unhappy. We still have so many problems. We still have so many difficulties that we face. So it takes some gravity, some austerity, first of all, to admit to ourselves that maybe I'm not so good at life. Maybe I'm not so good at being happy in this world. To change oneself requires a lot of sincerity, truthfulness, focus, intelligence, humility, and bravery. Nobody around us we might be living in a completely materialistic society. Nobody around us is showing any signs of changing themselves. And now all of a sudden I'm a vegetarian, and people around me are very doubtful of this. So, it takes a lot of bravery also to be able to resist peer pressure. One has to overcome the ego. One has to overcome the mind. One has to overcome his intelligence, his senses, his own ignorance in order to remain undisturbed. Why? Well, if our experience of this world, if our experience is shaped by our perception, then it is also shaped by what we base our perception on. If we base our perception on the senses, solely on the senses, like our eyes, we have 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, Gyanendriya, and 5 working senses, Karmendriya. The 5 knowledge-acquiring senses are eyes, ears, nose, skin, taste. We receive information from these. And our 5 working senses, the senses of action, are again our tongue for speaking, our hands, legs, genitalia, and what else? What am I missing? Those are knowledge acquiring senses. Skin.
What is anus?
That's okay. Yeah, genitals. Anyway, maybe I clustered the genitals together, so it's okay. We're not gonna get into details. Anyway, if we base our perception solely on the senses, then we are completely dependent on heat, cold, soft, hard, pleasant, unpleasant, and our whole experience of life is completely based on this. And what is that? That's animal life. That is animalistic life. That's what the animals do. If it's cold, all they try to do is get warm. They even change their fur. If it's hot, all they're trying to do is do that. If they're hungry, food. If it's night, sleep. If it's day, work. Completely dependent on external reality. Above the senses is the mind, but the mind is also not fixed. It's also changing. We have over 32 thoughts a day, and our thoughts change over time. 32,000. Most of them are subconscious, because most of the thoughts are also complex thoughts. Anyway, that's not from Shastra. If we base our perception on the mental platform, then we're also doomed to always have to adjust our conception of reality, because the mind, if we base our perception of reality on the mind is constantly changing, then we constantly have to adjust our idea of what life is. We're never at ease. We can never predict what's going to happen, and therefore we are always disturbed. Similarly, above the mind is the intelligence. The intelligence is somewhat more stable, but we also have the experience in our life that our intelligence changes also through time. So if we base our perception of reality on the intelligence, again, we're going to face change. We're going to face the need to adjust over and over again. And so many unforeseen things will come. We cannot have an idea of life that will take into consideration everything, because the intelligence can change, and all our life's ideas, we're going to have to drop them. So to actually be peaceful, to actually attain a state of existence free from all the material happiness and distress, free from all the changing dualities of this material nature, one has to base his life, his perception of life, his life goals, whole idea of life, on the spiritual platform, the platform of Krishna consciousness, on the platform of the soul. We have the senses, we have the mind, we have the intelligence, we have the ego. I didn't even mention that. But above all those things is the soul, which is the only thing in us that is unchanging. From the beginning of your life up to now, the only thing that hasn't changed is your role as conscious perceiver of all that be. Your body changed. Your senses, your sensory power changed. Your mind changed. Your mind changes during the day even. Your intelligence changed. Your ego changed. What you identify with changes also. But the only thing that hasn't changed in your life is your conscious perception. That you are still the thing that's perceiving the changing reality. That conscious perceiver, that consciousness, is actually the soul. It's the only unchanging thing in our life. This platform of spiritual consciousness, platform of Krishna consciousness, is eternal and transcendental. Spiritual means that which is not material. Material means changing all the time. This whole universe is called Jagat in Sanskrit, which means moving, changing all the time. But the spiritual means unchanging, eternal. The soul is the only eternal thing we have inside. And its attributes. But we're not going to go into that now. And all the revealed scriptures in the world, Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedas, the Quran, the Bible, all the recognized spiritual paths teaches the very same one and same thing, that reality is of dual nature. We have this spiritual energy, spiritual reality, and we have this material nature, material reality, and we have spiritual reality. On the spiritual platform, when one bases his life perception on the spiritual platform, only then is he freed from all the changing relativities of this material world. That person takes part in these relativities. But his life is no longer affected by them. Just looking at my notes. And one becomes completely satisfied, completely peaceful. Unrest, unpeace, or distress, unhappiness comes from the constant need to adjust to reality. You have your phone, you're very adjusted to it, but then you lose it. And then the need to adjust again creates disturbance, creates distress in our life. That's just an example. I already gave the example of a spouse. We're adjusted to living. Well, I have my family, then war comes, half my family dies. Have to adjust. Having to adjust to the reality causes my disturbance. But one who understands that he is actually a spiritual being, completely unaffected by this, he's still going to have a family, he's still going to take part in society, but he will never be deterred from his highest potential. He will never have to he will never deviate in his activities, and his performance in this world will never drop from the highest potential. We see people, when they meet distress, their performance in life drops. They become affected by what's going on. For example, there was in mid-July, there was a big storm in Zagreb, and it damaged a lot of things, created havoc. And people who were not on the spiritual platform, they were very much disturbed. But when we see people who are spiritual, for example, in this temple, the entire roof literally flew away. The devotees were happy. They were completely undisturbed by this. They were just, okay, we're going to spend all night in the rain trying to protect everything. It's fun. Chant Hare Krishna. Read Srimad Bhagavatam. We have videos. Vaikuntha Murti Prabhu laughing at his wife, fighting with the sacks of rainwater accumulating on the plastic with which we covered the part where the roof was supposed to be. We experience all the same. If our perception of reality is based on the spiritual platform, we are able to perceive all the relativities of this material world. One relativity is having a roof and not having a roof, duality. The better word is duality. We are able to perceive them, but we are completely unaffected by them. And this is quite desired by all people, isn't it so? All the materialists, which are completely devoid of spiritual understanding, they also admire people who are very dedicated to their line of work, who are who sacrifice, who give their best to advance their field of work, who are very charitable, who are very, all the good qualities. But one who attains the spiritual knowledge, he attains automatically to all these good qualities. He doesn't have to endeavor separately. Okay, now I'm going to be more compassionate, now I'm going to be more focused, now I'm going to be more determined in what I'm doing. No, because the person is on the spiritual platform, on the platform of God consciousness, tasting this freedom from all distress, tasting this liberation from material miseries, tasting a real platform of eternal bliss, knowledge, and eternal bliss and knowledge, he's automatically enthusiastic and he goes through life much easier because he's not affected, he has his duties, considers them a blessing from God, so that he can advance even further deepen his understanding of the world, and becomes an ideal person, completely fixed, as they say. When you have some let's take for example a sports star. Why are they so admired? Because they work really hard. Nothing comes overnight. Big businessmen, they work really hard. Big economists, big philosophers, big whatever you name it. People work really, really hard. But the intelligent person also works really hard, but the intelligent person works really hard in order to attain liberation from this material world, whereas the unintelligent person spends their whole life trying to uselessly manipulate this material world, failing at every step, and just resign. How to translate that? It doesn't translate equally. Resignirati, gives up. Just goes with the flow. So that's the nature of true intelligence. The one who understands that his life's need is to attain God consciousness. What is God consciousness? God consciousness means to understand that I'm an eternal being. I don't belong in this world. This world, this temporary world of happiness and distress, is not my real home. I actually belong in the spiritual world, where is eternity, knowledge, and bliss, blissful existence. Person who had in company of God, who is the supreme conscious being, supreme spiritual being, from whom everything emanates and who takes care of everything. A person who has this knowledge, he at once attains liberation from all happiness and distress, at once attains the results of all piety, all austerity, all knowledge, everything. The perfection of human existence, the perfection of the end of all knowledge, the Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti Vedanta means the end of all knowledge, is Bhakti, spiritual consciousness. So, to be a monk means to overstep all the steps one has to take to become really happy, to surpass all the lower forms of existence, all the lower conceptions of life, and to become situated by practice, by austerity, chanting, rising early, performing spiritual practice, spiritual duties. One becomes situated immediately on the highest platform of existence and becomes completely liberated, attains the end goal of all people, to become eternally happy. That is the that is the blessing of monk life. The one can completely dedicate himself in researching. There's this. I mean, it's not really kind of good example, but Mahatma Gandhi, he titled his biography "My Experiments with Truth," and a monk does this precisely. He, by accepting voluntary austerity, by accepting spiritual practice, rising early in the morning, chanting, etc., etc., he experiments with his own consciousness. Okay, is the sensory level of consciousness enough to make me happy? No. Okay, is the mental level of consciousness enough to actually attain peace? No. Is the intellectual level? No. What is the real level of existence? On what level can I attain my full potential? And by spiritual practice, we automatically experience all these lower levels. We don't have to make so many experiments in the real world. I mean, the real world, the ignorant world. People go through all these steps, whether they like it or not. One jumps automatically to the highest platform of spiritual consciousness and becomes permanently fixed in satisfaction, completely satisfied. So that is the true goal of a monk. And to be a monk may be a temporary situation in life, maybe a temporary arrangement in life. To live in a monastery, to devote your entire day to this cultivation of spiritual understanding. But once having done it, once having passed this stage of life, once having been trained up in spiritual consciousness, if one is to again participate in society at large, he is way ahead of all other people. Way ahead. Because he has the right understanding of reality. He has the right understanding of this world, of the spiritual world. And by cooperating on the spiritual platform with God, that's in the 18th chapter, all his obstacles are automatically removed. And he just, by the grace of God.
Magic. Like disappeared or what?
No. A person who is, we can read directly from Bhagavad Gita in answer to your question.
Sounds like a mystical thing, is it something practical?
It is mystical. For one who understands. Well, I just need to find it.
Nico has exam tomorrow, so he's excited how to get the anxiety out.
Wait 1 second. Okay, getting close. No. Where is that? Oh no, that's later. Krishna Chaitanya. Okay. Well, I'm doing this since you asked. So, Chetasa sarva karmani. Where is that verse? Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya mat paraha. Okay, yeah. Found it. Sorry, thank you. Machita sarva durgani mat prasada tarishyasi adhachetvam ahankaram nashroshyasi vinangshyasi. Translation, Lord Krishna says, if you become conscious of me, Spiritual consciousness means, in the end, conscious of our relationship with God. You will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Purport. A person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from all anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort, and he gives himself to his friend who is so devotedly engaged, working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily concept of life. This lower perceptions on the sensory plane. One should not falsely think himself independent of the laws of material nature or free to act. He is already under strict material laws, but as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should know very carefully, the one who is not active on this spiritual platform is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of birth and death. No conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness or spiritual consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. His path is clear. No more anxiety, no more uncertainty, no more unclarity. Is that a word? His path is clear, free from all doubt, free from all misconceptions. So this is what it means to be a monk. It's not even to be, the dictionary definition of a monk is to live in a monastery, be a part of a monastic order. But then if you look the definition of a monastic order, it just says society of monks. It's a kind of circular definition. But the Croatian translation of monarch, which I'd say is the equivalent of monk in English, the Croatian definition of the word monarch means someone who is devoted to a goal which he thinks is sacred. And I like that. That's cool, cool definition. To be a monk means to always strive for self-realization. To be a monk means to always endeavor for perfecting our life, to attain the highest, most platform of existence, so that we actually bring an end to all the miseries of life. By trying to manipulate matter around us, even if we are more focused, more determined, all these great qualities that people want, they will want to work on themselves, means I want to be more focused, I want to be more determined, I want to know what I want to do in life. All these things, even if we have all those things, if all we're trying to do is manipulate this material world, we're always going to have to face newer and newer distress and change of distress and happiness over and over again. We're never going to surpass material distress, material misery. But if one who understands the futility of this, diverts his attention, his hard work, towards spiritual understanding, be he in a monastery, be he in a family, at work, high school, whatever, you name it, in retirement, if he devotes his life not to manipulating matter, but to awakening his spiritual nature, he is actually on the path of success, on the path of overcoming all obstacles. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to allow first the questions.
Just like to elaborate. And a follow-up on this.
So it's a comment.
On this follow-up, yeah, because so let's say practical. Tomorrow, if I have an exam, it's really important example. So if I am the spiritual consciousness, I will actually be peaceful all the time. I will not be fearful, even though maybe I didn't have time to study it, but I will be peaceful. Okay, I will just do my best. and I will rely on the Supreme. He actually controls everything anyway. So I will just do my best, and I will go and take my more time to study. But I will always feel peaceful in myself. I did my best, and I did as best as I could. So the whole process of going to the exam and studying will be much more peaceful, much more like enjoyable, much more. The whole process will be more serene than if I don't have any spiritual aspect. Then I'll be like, oh, it's my endeavor, or it's like my like this is fault of this, and then it will be just like in stress and anxiety for the whole process. Is this the difference between like? Would that be a difference? How Krishna takes out this anxiety, material anxieties and problems?
Well, that's one example, but there are greater examples also. When one acts on the spiritual platform, he also perceives not just that he's more peaceful, but he also perceives that he's not alone. Krishna is really helping him. And when one actually realizes that, wow, actually, this is more than luck. I'm not so lucky in life. I'm not so lucky in life. When he perceives how actually Krishna saves him from various disturbances in this world. For example, Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he would always give the example of famine. Famine arises due to lack of dharma. God supplies everything, actually, basically. And famine arises when the dharma, when people are not following religious principles, when they are, I'm not going to say bad people, but they can be very moral people also. But when they are, highly sinful, then famine, war, these are the karmic reactions for these things. And Prabhupada would always quote that in India, in when was that, 1940, during the war, during the Second World War, there was a great famine, artificially created famine. The government, they withheld ships of grains and stuff like that. I don't know the whole history of that, and it's still a point of dispute. And Prabhupada, he was alive, and he was present there in Bengal at that time, or maybe he wasn't in Bengal, I don't know. He also traveled around. And he asked all the spiritual people, all the devotees, are you experiencing any difficulties? And all the people were dying out of famine, but all the devotees, all the people who were actually devoting their lives to God, they experienced that they didn't have any difficulty. They had enough of what they needed. So on this psychological level also, we feel more peaceful, free of anxiety. But on an external level also, God takes charge of our lives. Gives us what we need, takes away what we don't need. That's also there. And protects what we have. Yeah, that's true. Anything else? I mean, we should. Nico, do you have any question or doubt? You can also express some doubt if you want.
No.
Okay. Okay, then we'll stop. It's getting late. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.